All right, so far we've been focusing on one-step equations, only adding one thing or subtracting one thing. So here we're going to add another layer. And just like we did with the other ones, before we officially solve anything, we're going to practice looking at it and picking out the pieces. So we can think about how to solve it without actually focusing on solving it and just identifying the parts of it. And just like our other ones, we're going to circle the constant. I think I spelled that right. We're going to box the coefficient. Okay, so this is part of identifying parts of two-step equations. So as you can see here, I'm dividing but also subtracting with my variable. So that's the whole point, is that we're going to figure out, okay, which part is what do I do with it? Okay. So x over 8 minus 9 equals negative 7. We are always focusing on the side with the variable. So what am I doing to the variable? So even though this negative 7 is on its own, it's not the constant because it's not with the variable. So looking at this side, we're going to circle the constant with its sign. Do not forget that part. So this minus 9 is our constant. Okay. It says, how would you undo the constant? Or what's the opposite? Okay, the opposite of minus 9 is plus 9. So we would add 9 to undo that. That's a little more focused. Okay, I'm going to box the coefficient. So we're dividing by 8. Okay, the coefficient is the one that's stuck with the letter. Right, so we're dividing by 8. I would undo division by doing multiplication. I'm going to go ahead and label it and say multiply by 8. Yeah, I want us to label it what are you multiplying by, or what are you subtracting or adding. So to undo minus 9, to undo the constant, I would add 9. To undo dividing by 8, I would multiply by 8. Okay. So that's all this whole page is just figuring out what's the constant, what's the coefficient. Again, thinking through, now that two of them are happening at the same time, how do I undo each of them? All right, so here I have negative 8 plus x divided by 10 equals negative 9. So the constant is the number by itself that's not stuck with my variable. So in this case is a minus 8. I would undo minus 8 by doing plus 8. Okay. So remember that we can rewrite these ones as I can put the x over 10 first and then minus 8 equals negative 9. Oh, you can't see that. There you go. So you can rewrite it. And then our coefficient is what's happening directly to the variable. So this minus 8 on either one really is kind of separated. So this divide by 10. So to undo dividing by 10, I would multiply by 10. Okay. So I'll do two more with you. So here I have 4r plus 7 equals 19. The constant is on the side with the variable, the number that I'm adding or subtracting to the variable. So in this case, it's a plus 7. Don't forget the plus 7. To undo plus 7, I would subtract 7. Okay. So even though we're multiplying and adding something to our variable, that inverse operation process still applies. Okay. I'm going to box my coefficient. That's the number that's multiplying my variable. So in this case, 4. To undo multiplying, I would divide by 4. Okay. So notice that I'm not dividing by a -4, not subtracting a -7, just taking whatever number that is and doing its opposite operation. Okay. I might do this whole page with you. I'll just go through these two. All right, so circle the constant. So I find the side with the variable. So I'm focusing on 3m minus 6. This minus 6 is my constant, so I'm going to circle that. I would undo subtracting 6 by adding 6. Then box the coefficient. That's the number that's multiplying my variable. Don't forget the minus. So that's -3 times m. To undo multiplying, I would divide by -3. So that whole entire number in front, I have to divide by that whole thing that I boxed. All right, and then I'll do this one with you. So 1/10 m. What in the world do I do with that? Right? It's kind of confusing. Let me find a blank paper. Here we go. All right, so what you can do is you can kind of simplify that first. So I can put m over 1 to make it a fraction, and then just multiply across. 1 times m is 1m. 10 times 1 is 10. So you can think of this as m divided by 10. Okay. So you can just multiply across to make it into one thing. Okay. I will do one from the back side with you. Okay, so the constant is the number by itself with the variable. So this minus 12. To undo minus 12, I would add 12. Okay. And then what's being multiplied or divided by my variable is 10. To undo divide by 10, I would multiply by 10. Alright, I'm gonna skip this one for a second and let you do that one on your own. So like circle it or star it or something. I know, it's hard to see. So you don't forget to do it. And then I'm gonna do one from the back with you. This is the hard thing about equations. There's so many different kinds and different things you can see. Okay. So I want to talk about this fraction. So 5/6y. Okay. So the opposite so the inverse of a fraction is its reciprocal. That's when you flip the fraction. Okay. So we have 5/6y minus 1/3 equals 2. So my constant is this minus 1/3. So to undo subtracting 1/3, I would add 1/3. Okay. And the coefficient is 5/6. So to undo a fraction, you actually still, even though it's multiplying, you just multiply by the reciprocal, which is 6/5. Okay. So I know it's kind of confusing. We'll work on that more when we get to actually solving. So don't forget this one. Identify the constant. How would you get rid of that? Identify the coefficient. How would you undo that one?